What's up, everybody? Welcome aboard to Bubba's Bottom Line, and of course, it's great to be here. And of course, we call this Real Markets for Real People. And you know, as we look back at last week, another interesting week. And I think if we first start with the big news events, the things that were supposed to be a big part of last week, and that would have been the ECB, which did nothing, no surprise, on Thursday morning. And of course, the Jim Comey testimony, another waste of time. And I guess, Jim Comey tried to trap in Trump. And of course, he had no facts. And of course, as it turns out, Mr. Comey was the leaker. All right. So, I mean, it's interesting when you have the head of the FBI is one of the guys who's leaking things. And I think one of the points that was made consistently throughout the hearings was that everything was leaked except that the cloud that the president was under investigation because of Russia. Now, again, I know nothing about the internal workings of what's going on there, but I do know that Comey has been a thorn in the ass of everybody. And for whatever reason, he's decided to be, to do things that just are not logical. I mean, this whole hearing, the whole thing was a waste of time, a waste of money. And of course, very typical for our current government and past government, that we love to spend on money that we don't have on things that don't mean anything. And I think this is something that is really just another waste of time, as many of it is. I think this whole news cycle has gone bananas. I'm just quite frankly sick and tired of watching it and hearing it. And of course, obviously very strong opinions on both sides of this issue. And of course, somebody wrote me a nasty letter saying that they lost all respect for me because I supported the views of which I'm sharing with you right now, that I think it was a waste of time, and I think Comey was full of crap. And I do support I did support Trump, but whoever in office, I support the president of the United States of America, no matter who's there. I think that that's more important than anything else. And it's not, the office is not one man. I think it's a power that needs to be done, and we need to quit with the nonsense and the whining. But so as we look back into last week, what did we have? We had a week that was, again, more new highs. We're never going down again. The markets are just simply a machine that will never go down again. And of course, if you believe that, I have a bridge for sale, and I can give you a lot of other things that if you'd like to buy things like that. Because of course, this is always the sign in the times when everybody knows that the markets never go down again, that's just the time. And I think you saw a little taste of it on Friday with the NASDAQ. Now, the NASDAQ had what we call a key reversal in this markets. We're open on new highs, close on their lows. But at the end of the day, you had a lot of whip in a lot of things. You had markets that were very much on edge. Now, we didn't see a big spike up on volatility, but we did see a little bit of movement. And I think what you're seeing here is a market getting ready to make a potential turn to the other side. Now, again, I repeat, markets are going to go up eventually. So I'm not telling you that the world as we know it is ending. I'm telling you that in the current strike, we are looking for some sell-offs. We're looking for the markets to be under a little pressure. We're looking for some profit taking. All right. Again, that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing. But one of the questions we have to analyze here is: are we going to continue to listen to the pundits that blab on TV all day long about how good everything is going, when we know that the middle class is not striving here? Are we going to continue to listen to this cheerleading and how markets can never go down again? Again, this is the warning signs that I put out there. I am not telling you to sell the market. I'm not telling you to sell your position. I am telling you that more than likely a market sell-off is going to come. More than likely there's going to be a correction, okay? Now again, it doesn't mean that you should dump everything or get panicked. What it means is be prepared for it. Be mentally and emotionally prepared for what can happen next, all right? That's what you want to make sure that you understand. Be prepared mentally and emotionally, because when you don't prepare for these things, you end up panicking out. Now, trading, investing, and trying to grow your money other than just from your job are made of things that are up here. Okay, we know if we expect and we know that there's going to be some selling. If we understand that, then we won't panic out. The markets themselves are driven by fear and greed. Well, right now we are in the greed cycle. Everybody keeps buying. Of course, we saw again, we'll go back to Friday, we saw the NASDAQ getting hammered, but it did rally back a little bit, still got hammered. But people are willing to step in and buy. But if you've noticed, the type of buying that's going on is not by the commercials, the big banks, it's by the small retailers. That is always the end of any cycle, is when the retailers start to get involved. Because at the end of the day, they're never right. They're always late in, and they're always the first to panic out. So when you look at the picture, all right, just remember that markets themselves go up year over year. If you're buying good companies for your retirement or whatever, there's no need to panic. There are ways to do things. You can learn how to hedge your portfolio, which we have our last hedging class till fall on Thursday, June 14th. Certainly you can go to bubbatrading.com and check that out. Again, we're about protecting money and about compounding wealth. And that's what you learn when you do the hedging course. Go check out bubbatrading.com. In the meantime, this is Bubba's Bottom Line, Real Markets, Real People. We're going to step out here for a break, but remember, catch the Bubba Show every single day at 2 to 3 Eastern Time at libertytalk.fm. You can also download the show there as well. We're going to step out of here for a break. We'll be right back with more of Bubba's Bottom Line after the break. Bubba's Bottom Line will be right back. Welcome back to Bubba's Bottom Line. And of course, you know, we've got a Fed meeting coming up this week. Now, we've got 22 economists who want to ruin our lives. The world of the Fed is the world of ridiculous and sublime. It's really such a tragedy that we are roped into being part of this Federal Reserve banking system. The system itself is flawed. The people who run it are flawed. The whole model is a legalized Ponzi scheme. And if you don't see it, let me try to give it one more shot here explaining it. All right. The bottom line is this. All right. They're going to sit down. They're going to have their 2-day meeting, their crap, and who knows what the hell, they're tea and crumpets for 2 days. Who knows what they're going to talk about? It's not like it's not like we don't have communication. It's not like they don't talk every day. All right. So they're going to have this whole big meeting, and they're going to, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? You know, it's such a bunch of crap. It is so ridiculous. The bottom line is they're going to hike rates, okay, which is no big deal. It shouldn't be a big deal. Of course, if they'd let the free markets work, then we'd know exactly when it was time. But in the meantime, they don't have any idea, they don't have a clue of what goes on around them. They do not understand, number one, a free market society. Number two, how a business works. Number three, how the actual economy really works. They understand what they can read in a book. They understand from theory. But as we know from history, people that write theory don't necessarily know how it works in the actuality. If we go back in history and look at the damage that the Federal Reserve has done, you will find that they've created a lot more problems for everybody than they have solved. The rushing to print money, the rushing to put new money into a system to satisfy old debt, just like the debt ceiling that's coming up soon, is a total joke, ridiculous waste of time, connived and contrived by a bunch of people that have no interest in whether or not the middle class survives or not. You have the central banking system itself is almost designed to destroy the middle class and let the rich take over the world and screw everybody else. That it would be the appearance that if I would look at it, why else would the banks always continue to get bailed out? Why else do the banks have the right to print money through fractional banking? It doesn't make a lot of sense. When you look at the big picture, the Fed is supposed to be there just for the lender of last resort, not the supplier of the debt ceiling, so that the government can continue to print money through the Federal Reserve to raise the debt ceiling. When are they going to have to live on a budget like everybody else? Now, what does all this mean? Well, what it means is that we continue to pay our taxes that are really inflated by the Fed so they can satisfy this old debt, which they never do because it's kind of like the mouse on the wheel, all right, or the rat, what we call the rat on the wheel. But they don't take care of what's supposed to be happening. What they're worried about is themselves. Again, it's a circle of ridiculous. You have nobody takes a pay cut when things are going bad. They just continue to pound it up. So where is this really going to go? And when you have a team of economists that have no clue and no logic, you have a problem. But what does it mean to the stock market? It doesn't mean anything. Again, remember, stock markets are very smart. They understand the concept, how they've understand for the last 8 years, 9 years. They knew that the free money was going to help keep the market higher. So we go back to this manipulation of markets, the manipulation of money, which does not ever work. Have we not noticed, have you not been watching on a smaller scale OPEC? OPEC has been trying to pump up prices since November, and they successfully have brought the prices down about 20% since the initial run. So do you really think that you can manipulate price? You cannot. You can screw a few people on price manipulation at the beginning. But at the end of the day, true free markets or price discovery will eventually price assets fairly. And what we've seen here more so is the destruction of true free markets and real true price discovery. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but at the end of the day, you can see that manipulating, trying to create an artificial market, to create an artificial price, never really works. Again, you can look at it in any asset class that you own and decide. It's no different even, we had having some of these big art auctions right now. Really? So the painting's worth $3 million? Next year, if the markets go down, the painting will be worth $5. Again, you cannot create artificial worth, especially when you go to these other things. But this is what the whole program behind the monetary system in which we're seeing right now is to artificially inflate. Right? That is not going to be good for the stock market. We continue to hear about how good earnings are. Earnings are not that good. Earnings are good compared to last year, but we are way down below. And the simple thing that you need to look at is exactly this: growth. Do we have growth? The answer is no. We have zero growth, right? We're going to have another under 2% GDP. We've got so many people trying to create more growth here, but yet we can't get there. Why? Because you cannot get there unless you build something. Money itself, the old phrase, which I actually coined in 2009, is you cannot borrow yourself out of debt. You cannot borrow your way out of debt. Now, that's what the Fed is doing. That's what the government is doing. But the government isn't concerned about getting out of debt. They're concerned about pushing the debt down to the next generation and pushing the debt down to the next generation and keep that cycle, because they don't care. They just want what they got coming. And what they got coming should be out. But in the meantime, these are some of the problems. We're going to stop out of here for a break. This is Bubba's Bottom Line. Real markets, real people. Make sure you check out the Bubba Show every single day from 2 to 3 Eastern Time at libertytalk.fm. You can also download the show there as well. And also, check out my friend Danielle DiMartino Booth and her new book, Fed Up. You can get a free copy. You can do a trial at audibletrial.com /The Bubba Show. and check out that book, Fed Up. It's kind of right up our alley. In the meantime, we're going to stop out here for a break. We'll be right back with more of Bubba's Bottom Line after the break. Bubba's Bottom Line, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Bubba's Bottom Line. It's Todd Bubba Horwitz with you, and of course, real markets, real people. And we do, as we said, we have the Fed, and we spent some time talking about and wasting on them. But of course, Goldman Sachs, they're having their little preview on the Federal Reserve, and of course, those of you who know me know that not a big fan. Smart guys, probably the best in the business. But do you really think that the report that they're going to send out is going to be really beneficial to the average guy, or is it beneficial to what they're trying to do? I'm sure they already know what the Fed is going to do. One of the problems we have in this system is that the insiders seem to be able to get some of the inside information. It goes back to the Fed chair who gave away a lot of this information to some of the hedge funds. Look, we know that they give things away. We know that we talk about free markets and price discovery, that Goldman is a big believer in free markets, but they also are a big believer in trying to manipulate one way or the other. And again, I'm only talking, I don't have written proof of this. I only have proof from when I traded on the trading floor, and you would have one side, one broker doing one thing and a bigger broker doing the opposite, which is trying to create the market. Now, again, no accusation, this is just assumption, but it is something that I did experience. And of course, that's why when the major players, Citigroup, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, when they upgrade a stock, my opinion, that's a sale. And when they downgrade it, it's a buy. Because to me, they are doing things that are going to benefit them and their customers at the end of the day. All right. We've seen a lot of this shenanigans kind of stuff going on. And again, I'm not a big believer. Again, I think they're worried about their clients, which is good. If I'm one of their clients, I'm happy. But again, I think that overall, it's a lot of things that we talk about that are not quite, they border against the line. Let's put it that way. And I think that one of the bigger things that we have to understand is that information that comes out is typically not for you. Okay, information is designed to help the person putting out the information. Again, this is one of the things that we have to learn to understand. A little bit of the WikiLeaks, all these types of information morsels were out for a reason. They weren't just like random leaks. They were leaked for a particular reason or a cause. And that's where I think that we make a much bigger mistake overall, is we tend to buy into this, and that's where, if you go back to the pundits, the cheerleading pundits that tell you, we're never going down again, we're going up, 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 up. And you tie that into the brokers and the advisors that go there and do the same thing. They all have an agenda, okay? Everybody's got an agenda. I mean, we all have in life a reason that we do certain things, all right? Now, again, but here, the things that you hear, brokers want you in the market. Why? Because that's where they get their commission. Advisors want you in because that's where they get their fee. The networks want you in because that's where they get the ratings from. So it's always about the money, right? Life comes down to a couple of things, and one of them is money. So if you think that we're going to continue, to see different, you're not. We've had, if you go back in history, right, everything always leads to how do we get the best ratings? How do we make the most amount of money? How do we get the most amount of customers? That's what it's always about. But that's where you, the private investor, have to sit back and think to yourself, let me research that a little bit. And that's where I think that we make quite a bit of mistakes over time, is we don't do enough research. And it doesn't mean that I'm not a fundamental guy from a trading standpoint, but I think when you look at the overall market, okay, when you look at the overall investing world and you understand it, I think that you can then realize what you're trying to find, which is, if you want to buy something long term, if you want to buy an asset long term, you want to buy something that you have confidence is going to be there in the long term. So if you're going to buy a stock, for the long term, would you buy Snap or would you buy AT&T? Well, I mean, Snap might be a monster winner, but it also has a big chance to go broke. AT&T's been around for 100 years or whatever it is, and they figured it'd be around for another 100 years. So if you want to put your money away, where are you going to put it? And that's what we're talking about, is making sure that you understand the research, because again, information that's out there that is recommending is not necessarily in your best interest. I think it's something you have to look at, and this drives me right to, if you've been watching the Bitcoin, all right? Bitcoin has been going through the roof. It is up, I think, 200% now this year, almost getting ready to push $3,000. Now, again, I freely admit that I don't understand it all that well. I understand the theory. I understand the technology. I just don't understand the whole Bitcoin model. But I do understand charts. I do understand when I hear guys like Kramer go, Bitcoin's going to $1 million, right? Now, Kramer's the same guy that said Bear Stearns wasn't going broke, that Lehman was fine, that gold was going to the moon when it was the highest, and now he's saying that Bitcoin's going to $1 million. And there was no housing bubble. So if you decide to look at all of these things, all right, and you understand that, then he's never been right on these types of calls. Now, again, I'm not saying we'll never get there. I have no idea. But I do know one thing. When you look at a chart, when you look at a market and you see something going straight up in the air, most likely there's going to be profit takers. Now, my concern here in Bitcoin is not only that it's going up, but so are all the other ones around it. Ethereum, there's a bunch of little now new cryptocurrencies, and that's the thing that concerns me as well. There's a lot of little cryptos coming out around it. Now, I know the blockchain technology is perfect. In fact, I understand that China and Russia are already using the blockchain technology. So that I have no problem with. I may have no problem with any of it. I don't understand it. I think that if you buy Bitcoin, it's like an investment like anything else. But certainly, I wouldn't be buying it at these levels. If it keeps going up, it keeps going up. I'll miss it. But certainly, you would want to wait for a pullback. I think that the levels are ridiculous. I think from a pure chart standpoint, I have no idea. I don't care what it is. If that was a chart of Apple, I would be telling you the same thing. If it was a chart of the most safest company in the world, I would be telling you the same thing. It has nothing to do with the Bitcoin. What it has to do with is that now guys like Kramer are buying into it, and they're now telling you that it's going to $1 million, which means that its next big move is probably down first, even if it's going to go back up. Markets make bubbles. Okay, that's just the way it's been. It's the way life is. And if you're going to start to believe in people that make absurd statements like Bitcoin 1 million, I mean, maybe it's got to get to 3,500 first. Maybe it's got to break 3,000 first. You know, that's what always bothers me about big calls. I can say to you, okay, yeah, I see Bitcoin eventually getting to 1 million, but before it gets there, it's got to go through 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, okay, and continue to work. You know, it's like, you know, guys make big calls when gold was up at 1,900 and people are going, well, gold's going to 10,000. I said, how about if it gets through 2,000 first? So you have to understand that markets, like everything else, work in little percentages. And they don't go from Dow 21,000 to Dow 25,000 or Dow 15,000. There's going to be levels in between. So if you buy this crap, then that's on you. Because again, don't get caught up with the spin that everybody wants to put out there for you. It's not correct. The spin is not what you want to be in. You want to understand it. Understand where we are and where you are within a technical read of a chart pattern, knowing that no matter what, there will be some sort of a pullback, just like in the markets there'll be a pullback, just like we saw in the bull market in gold, just like we see in every market, there's always a pullback and then there's always buying coming back in. That's what we're looking at. We're going to step out here for our last break and come back with my opinion piece. This is Bubba's Bottom Line, Real Markets, Real People. Make sure you go to LibertyTalk.fm every day at 2 to 3 Eastern and listen to the Bubba Show. And of course, you've got the ability to download the show there as well. And go to BubbaTrading.com if you want to check out our hedging program starting on June the 14th. We'll step out here for a break. Bubba's Bottom Line, Real Markets, Real People. Be right back with my opinion piece. Coming back. Welcome back to Bubba's Bottom Line. And of course, every week I get to spew my opinion out. And, I've got so many, we in fact, on my Monday call, we call this Bubba's Bitch. But, I think that the entire government is in total disarray. I think that it's a total mess. And I think it's our fault that we let it get this far away. I think we as people have become far too accepting of the BS that they want to pull. And we'll start with Congress and the Senate. They are dragging down President Trump. Now, again, I don't care if you like Trump or you don't like Trump. He is the president, and the only advantage for us is to make America better. okay, to make the system better. Now, if you're in the middle class, you cannot be very thrilled at your economic situation because so many people are still not working. So I want to know when these jackasses in the House and Senate can get off their ass and do something correctly and quit with the garbage and quit stealing and spending our money on worthless. When are they going to take a pay cut? When are they going to give back some of the money they keep taking out of the government? You know, we have to live on a real budget. Why don't they? I'm concerned that they're going to, once again, build up the debt ceiling, which is for no reason. I want to know when they're going to have a real budget that actually balances and lives like a normal human being. Because companies, everything but the government has to live on a real budget. And I want to know when that's going to stop. I want to know when these bozos that continue to try to create issues, Schumer, Pelosi, and there's plenty on the right too. Again, I'm not picking on either party here. I'm pissed on both sides because, again, they're not doing the job. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. And what they're really doing is stealing the money from the middle class, which ties in then the Federal Reserve, who continues to try to get this inflation thing going because that is how they can bring in more tax money. You know how you bring in more tax money? If you provide, instead of pissing $4.5 million down the toilet, giving it to the banks so they can print more money themselves, okay, you take the money and you rebuild America, right? You rebuild the country with infrastructure, right? And then you get people working. You know what people do when they work? They actually spend money. It's an amazing anomaly that you, Bobby, wouldn't understand from the Fed, okay, or from the government, that when you actually put people to work, they actually go out and pay. They actually spend their money. But of course now we've got retail collapsing because Amazon, but we also have retail collapsing because the average family doesn't make enough money to go shopping, right? So what are they gonna do? If you shop at Amazon, you save money because you don't have to pay the gas to get there. There is no reason for the outings anymore. People are struggling to get by. So you've got the government that wants to push the debt thing higher. You got the Fed that's going to help them. Fed's a private corporation. No, it's not the part of the government. I want you to know that. So you've got all of this nonsense, all right? And yet you've got a president in office that really wants to make things better for everybody. He wants to show some real growth. But how are we going to get growth when we can't get past healthcare, tax cuts, and these other things? Why? Because you've got the boisterous people on the left, which again, and I'm not blaming them only. I think they're incorrect. I don't like their style. But there's plenty on the right behind the scenes that are backstabbing our president as well. And I think that's the bigger problem. So we can hear about all this. They're going to work through the break. There's no chance they're working through the break. We have a problem. And the only way to solve it is really at the voting booth. And unfortunately, it can't be solved this time. But we, the American people, have to take better care and quit settling for the way it's always been. Because the way it's always been is created the mess that we're in today, which means that you're making less money than you were making 20 years ago, which means that maybe your assets are worth more, but in overall real wealth effect feeling, you're not feeling it, all right? So we've got big problems with the government, we've got big problems with the Fed, and until we iron out those problems, the middle class will continue to struggle. The middle class will continue to be on the short end of the stick because though they are the spenders, the payers, the taxers, and they take care of everything. Without them, we've got a big problem, which is what you're seeing right now, which is why tax receipts are dramatically lower, which is why we're having trouble seeing everything function the way it's supposed to be. And that is what's creating the bigger meltdown overall. Anyways, everybody have a great week. Thank you so much for being here. This is Todd Bubba Horwitz. Bubba's Out of Line. We'll see you back here next time. Thank you so much and have a great week. See you later.